those of you who've heard my lectures, I have a whole boatload of different lectures, but this is like one of my favorite. I love this lecture because it really ties in, exercise and performance and nutrition in a very different kind of a way. And as athletes and coaches, personal trainers, and people who just plain old work out, we are oftentimes consumed and frankly confused by the proper amount of carbohydrates and fats and proteins that we need to fuel our bodies for performance. And while that macronutrition is obviously super important, what is oftentimes forgotten, and I fall into that category as well, is the important role that fruits and vegetables play in actually helping to preserve your potential for future gains in physical fitness and athletic performance. And specifically, it's the micronutrition that's in fruits and vegetables that has been found to be responsible for reducing what is now considered to be a leading cause of chronic disease, aging, and as you're going to see, impaired athletic performance. And that's something called oxidative stress and free radical damage. So that's what we're going to talk about here this morning. I love Photoshop. Anyway, this is, isn't this what we consider, or lots of people consider to be like healthy in this country? It's like how ripped you are on the outside and how buffed you are. And, to a certain extent, you have to work out to look like that, amongst taking a few other things, but we won't even go into that. But this isn't, you can look really good on the outside, but not healthy on the inside. And that's really what we're talking about here. Are you really healthy at a cellular level? Are you healthy enough to sustain good physical fitness year in, year out? And really that's the essence of what we're going to be talking about here this morning. It's thinking about how you fuel your body, and specifically the micronutrients that we're going to talk about, how important that is, again, for future gains in physical fitness and athletic performance. And specifically, what I want to do is just make a big distinction, because I find that people get this concept confused a lot. There's a difference between macronutrition and micronutrition. Okay, macronutrients are the big food groups, the carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And we need that macronutrition to fuel our bodies. And you can think of macronutrients as the gasoline that makes your engine run. Okay, because we obviously have to have those. But very different and very distinct are the micronutrients that you get from fruits and vegetables. Okay, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals. And you can think of those micronutrients as the oil that makes your engine run. Okay, because you can put all the gasoline into a car and not change its oil, and that car is going to run for a little while, but eventually if you're not changing the oil, that car is going to break down, that engine is going to break down. Well, as you're going to see, our bodies function in a very similar way. If you don't put micronutrients, if you don't put the oil into our engine, as you will see through the research, our engines eventually fail as well. So again, there's a big distinction between macronutrients and micronutrients, because when you talk to athletes and coaches, and they're always wanting to know how much protein should I be getting, it's like, it's not what we're talking about here, okay? We're talking about the micronutrients, and this is key as we get into the research big time. So we know that training and exercising is going to lead to performance gains. You're going to get stronger, healthier, we know that. But the important thing to understand is that the oxygen that we breathe in, while obviously it's necessary, can act as a double-edged sword. Similar to when you cut an apple in half or a banana in half and you leave them exposed to room air, what happens to them? Okay, they become brown, they become oxidized. Well, a similar process is actually going on inside of our bodies as we're taking in oxygen. In essence, we're kind of, rusting from the inside out. And in a very global sense, that's pretty much what oxidative stress is. Now, under normal resting conditions, like y'all are listening to me, like y'all are listening to me, I've moved from Atlanta to Phoenix. You'd think I'd get rid of the y'all stuff, but I can't, so. But under normal conditions, like you're all listening to me, we're taking in oxygen. It's going into our lungs, going out into our bodies, being reduced in something called the mitochondria and to produce energy. But the important thing to understand is that oxygen that we're breathing in, while it's necessary, can, again, be a double-edged sword in the sense of free radicals. So what happens is that even under normal circumstances, like you're just sitting here at rest, roughly, a very small percentage, roughly 2 to 5% of the oxygen that you're breathing in right now is being converted to these nasty bugs called free radicals. So it occurs as a part of our normal daily routine or normal daily metabolism, but it's greatly accelerated when you exercise. Okay, so when you exercise at any level, and you increase your oxygen consumption, you're going to increase your free radical load. We know that. So again, oxidative stress occurs as part of our normal daily metabolism, but it's greatly accelerated when you exercise. And it also occurs in the weekend warrior. Okay, so this is the picture I got when I Googled weekend warrior. I have absolutely no idea who that is. Makes the point though. But again, the reason I point this whole issue out is that we are all we all come equipped with this very elaborate internal antioxidant cascade that acts as a frontline defense system against neutralizing free radicals. But as you're going to see, this system can't function by itself. It'll fail on its own unless it's fortified each and every day, and we're going to get into that when we talk about the research. But the reason I put this up is that what they have found is that if you exercise on a regular basis, you can actually upregulate this internal enzyme system that we're born with. But as it applies to the weekend warrior, of course, the weekend warrior person is the individual that cannot go out and exercise 3, 4, 5 days a week, and on the weekend they decide to go out and play 2 hours of tennis or run an hour or 2 hours. And because they have not upregulated this internal enzyme system, when they go out and exercise, they absolutely flood their body full of free radicals. So again, when I talk about this kind of oxidative damage that's occurring, it occurs at any function of exercising, whether you're a weekend warrior all the way up to, again, the elite athlete. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so what I want to do now is just take you down to the kind of the microphysiology behind energy production, because this is pretty much where 85 to 90% of these free radicals really are generated is at the muscle cellular level. And this is just a cartoon depiction of a muscle, like our biceps muscle. And our muscles are made up of thousands and thousands of these tiny fibers called myofibrils. And riding alongside of those fibers are these ovoid organelles. Okay, and these are the cellular mitochondria. These are the energy producers for our body. Okay, this is where energy from the food that you eat combined with the oxygen that you breathe in goes into making a usable form of energy to make your body run, and that's something called ATP. But the important thing to understand is that this is not an airtight process. Okay, not all of the molecules are utilized in the production of energy in the form of ATP, and so what happens is that you end up with this spillover effect of these highly charged reactive oxygen species, otherwise known as free radicals. And these free radicals, again, if they're not neutralized, effectively neutralized, they can escape from the mitochondria and begin to do damage to our nearby healthy cells. Okay, free radicals can attack the membranes that surround all of our cells and tissues. They can attack the proteins inside of our bodies, and this is huge when we're talking about our research. We're going to come back to this again in a little bit. Free radicals can attack our genetic material, our DNA, and real importantly, whether you're just getting up going to work, okay, all the way up to the elite athlete, cumulatively over a period of time, if free radicals are not effectively neutralized, they will attack and do damage to the very mitochondria that formed them. Okay, and the reason that's important is because mitochondria do not have the ability to effectively repair themselves from that kind of damage, similar to other cells inside of our body. So cumulative damage to your mitochondria begin to shut down your mitochondria. Okay, and the reason that's important is because, well, those are your energy producers. Okay, and loss of energy production is going to affect you, again, whether you're just getting up and going to work, all the way up to the elite athlete, and this is a cumulative process. And a great example of this is what happened to Greg LeMond. Okay, Greg LeMond was the first American to win the Tour de France. And now the only American to win the Tour de France. I won't even get into that. But anyway, Greg LeMond developed something called a mitochondrial myopathy. Don't worry about what all that is. But what it was is a defective gene that he had inherited from his mother that was actually flipped on. Or turned on by all the years of oxidative stress that he had incurred training and racing. All that oxygen he'd been taking in flipped on this bad gene. And what happens is that gene began to shut down his mitochondria. And so he had this loss of energy production, was forced into retirement. He's fine, but he can't do and perform activities that he normally would be able to do because of this particular genetic issue. Now, while this is an extreme issue and is fairly rare, the whole point is that he didn't feel this oxidative damage occurring inside of his body. And that's the whole point that we're going to be talking about, is you don't typically feel these things, but they can do damage to your body. And the whole idea is preventing this from happening in the first place. And let me make it clear that the first half of this lecture is pretty depressing. Okay? I'm setting you up for the good stuff though, so hang in, all right? Hang in there with me. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the areas where oxidative stress plays a role in exercise. And one of the areas is in muscle damage. And there's a process called, or a phenomenon called DOMS, or delayed onset of muscle soreness. And what that is that you go out and have a hard race, or you have a hard training session, and the next day you don't feel too badly. But as that day continues and into the next 2 to 3 days, your muscles start to get more and more sore. Well, that delayed onset of muscle soreness is believed to be due in part to continued free radical production at the muscle cellular level, even after you've stopped exercising. So even though you've stopped exercising, free radicals continue to be generated at the muscle cellular level, setting you up for this inflammatory process that can lead to muscle pain that can, again, occur 2 to 3 days after a particular race or training session. Okay, so I'm putting this up here. Those of you who've heard this lecture before, I throw this up because this is a pretty phenomenal thing. They have found, and I talk to athletes all over the country all the time about this, and I find that a lot of athletes are dependent upon anti-inflammatory medicine. It's almost like part of their training regimen. They go do a CrossFit session, go home, pop a couple Advil, just because they don't want to have the muscle pain afterwards. And this study actually came out a few years ago where they found that athletes that use anti-inflammatory medicine on a fairly chronic basis, well, they now have found that those anti-inflammatory medicines actually increase oxidative stress in the human body. And for those of you that didn't hear my story, it ties into this. In 2004, I did Ironman Florida, and you typically go from the swim to the bike to the run, and you're typically on your bike for 4 or 5 hours, getting ready for afterwards. You're going to follow up with your marathon, and so the best time to fuel your body is when you're on your bike. And so you have something on the top tube of your bike called a bento box, which is just a Velcro little tiny box that has all your food, your gels and whatever you're eating. Well, guess what I had in my bento box? Advil. I was popping Advil in anticipation of blunting the pain in my legs that I would have on the marathon. And little did I know, that was 3 years before this publication came out. Little did I know I was doing more harm than good. And you're going to hear my story again as it ties in totally to this in the rest of the research. So I tell people, this should not be part of your training regimen. Okay, anti-inflammatory medicine should really just be reserved for acute injuries. Okay, another area where oxidative stress plays a role is in tendon injuries. And tendons are the connective tissue between your muscles and your bones. And it can be the tendons in your shoulder, your elbow, your knees, or your Achilles tendon. And yes, those are my calves. No, hardly. I wish. And a cartoon depiction of a normal healthy tendon looks like a series of very organized cables. But a tendon that's undergone overuse injury, oxidative damage due to overuse, looks like the end of a shoelace, that plastic part that starts to fray. And histopathologically, if you look at it under a microscope, it looks very, very similar. A normal healthy tendon looks like a series of striated cables. And a tendon that's undergone this oxidative damage due to overuse looks like a bowl of spaghetti. And this is a very interesting study where researchers biopsied the shoulder tendons of elite swimmers who are having no symptoms at all, no pain at all. And what they found when they put the tissue underneath a microscope is that 70% of those elite swimmers that were having no symptoms at all already had this going on underneath the hood. And they weren't having any pain at all. So again, what we're saying is that by the time you start to have an injury, when you start manifesting, pain in your tendons or whatever it might be, this process has probably already been going on underneath the hood for quite a while. And so this is, again, I'm kind of coming back to this. This is about preventing this from happening in the first place. Okay, another area where oxidative stress plays a role is in increased infections. And, okay, everybody cough. Doesn't that guy make you want to hack? But what they have found is that when you exercise vigorously, it tends to suppress your immune system a little bit, really, when you exercise hard. And you have about a 15 to 20% increased risk of developing a cough or a cold. And it's based on something called the open window concept of infection. And so this is really, really interesting. What they have found on this particular axis is your immune functioning, okay, your immune system. And so there's your average immune functioning, you're above average, and you're below average. immune functioning. On this axis is your exercise level. Okay, so going from sedentary to moderate to very high levels. And so what we know is that when you exercise at a moderate amount, it actually increases your immune function. Okay, your immune system gets revved up, gets healthy, and that correlates with a decrease in infections. Okay, because there is a certain amount of exercise that is beneficial. But when you overdo exercise, what happens is that your immune functioning will start to go down, and your infection risk of getting coughs and colds increases. And this open window area where pathogens can get into your body and make you sick is believed to be right around 90 minutes of physical activity. So people who are exercise junkie and people who just go out there all the time and exercise, what happens is that about that level, your stress hormones kick in, like cortisol, and those tend to decrease or push down your immune system. And so, again, we kind of know what the base is, what the bottom line is, or the floor is about exercise and how much is good for us, 30 to 60 minutes a day. The question is, how much is too much? And we're finding out that the body starts to break down a little bit at roughly 90 minutes of physical activity. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about before we get onto the happy stuff here, we need the happy song, is damage to heart. Now this is really, really, really interesting and kind of scary a little bit. They would have found is that heavy and sustained exercise does indeed produce free radicals, and they're now finding that these free radicals actually do damage to heart muscle. Okay, and this is pretty earth-shaking. I have been collaborating with an interventional cardiologist in Southern California and talking with him, and he's been doing CAT scans on hearts or in athletes in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and he's finding in these athletes that they've got this calcification in their arteries that's equivalent to a 70-year-old. And in talking with him, because we're seeing a lot of these exercise junkies sometimes keeling over in their 50s. And talking with him, it's believed that this increased stress that you put on your heart from doing all this heavy exercise, it increases shear force on the inside of those arteries. And that oxidative stress plays a role in this calcification and muscle damage. So again, I point this out. This doesn't mean that you can't do a marathon, train for a marathon or an Ironman, because people want goals. But my whole point is that if you're going to do that, again, you need to be protecting yourself from the potential damage that this can do. Okay? Now, are you all depressed? Yep. Good. That's it. I'm done. Thank you very much. I won't leave you hanging. Okay. So this is the good part. Now we get into the really good part. Okay. So in order to neutralize this oxidative stress, we need antioxidants. And again, I'm going to bring this up because this is huge to understand when we're talking about our research. Okay, we all come equipped with this internal enzyme system that acts as a frontline defense system against neutralizing these free radicals. But the important thing to understand is that even though we're born with this, it can't function by itself. It will fail on its own, and you'll see this through the research. So what you have to do is to make this thing function properly, you have to fortify it. And we fortify this through our diets, but it's specifically diets that are rich in fruits and vegetables, and specifically the rainbow of colors. The reds, the greens, the purples, the yellows. Because inside of those colorful pigments exist these very powerful plant chemicals called phytonutrients. And what I mean by phytonutrients is basically plant-based nutrition. It's thousands and thousands of powerful antioxidant substances found in all the fruits and vegetables, and this is the key. All those plant nutrients are working together synergistically to be very powerful in the human body in reducing this oxidative stress. And so the question is, how many fruits and vegetables should we be getting? And based on the most current epidemiological and observation studies, it's now recommended that we should be consuming 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And that is every day. It's not Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, every single day for the rest of your life. And doing some research on this based on kilocalorie output, it's now suggested that people who approximate 60 to 90 minutes of physical activity or more on a fairly regular basis, well, you should be consuming somewhere on the order of 16 to 18 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. So good luck with that one. And if somebody tells you they're getting 16 to 18 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day, they're lying. Trust me. So, unless you can get that quantity in your diet each and every day, and just as important as the quantity is that vast array of colors, unless you can get that in your diet every single day, unfortunately for most of us, there's going to exist some form of a gap in our nutrition. And the traditional way that we've been filling that nutritional gap has been through the consumption of isolated, fragmented, laboratory-made vitamins and or multivitamins that we see everywhere on counters today. But the whole thing is that there's a huge paradigm shift in this entire line of thinking of taking these isolated nutrients. And it's solely based on the research, the research that we know today that we didn't even know as of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And this is just a handful of studies on athletes showing that taking these isolated vitamins like vitamin C or E or multivitamins, not only are they not giving benefit to the human body in these athletes, but in some instances they're actually doing more harm than good. Okay, and I know that sounds counterintuitive. Okay, because even when you just look at the word vitamin, you think it's going to be healthy for you. Okay, but these studies are pretty impactful. And in fact, this was a systematic review of the literature done a couple of years ago. Systematic review of the literature on vitamin supplementation and exercise performance. It was done by a couple of New Zealand researchers, and they looked at over 100 studies and narrowed it down to about 30 to 40 well-designed randomized controlled trials. And when they parsed through thousands of pages of data, this was the statement that they came out with. Okay, it was that a growing body of evidence indicates detrimental effects of vitamin supplementation on the health and performance benefits of exercise training. Okay, but very interesting. And their final conclusion, this is what they said, quote, a variety of fruits and vegetables remains the best nutritional approach, and this is the key, to maintain optimal antioxidant status. Thank you for making my point for me. Okay, so that's huge. I mean, it's absolutely enormous. So the bottom line is, doesn't it make a lot more sense to bridge the nutritional gap with whole food sources that contain your vitamins and minerals, but in their natural, whole, unfractionated form, in the form that our bodies were meant to recognize and utilize, versus trying to bridge the gap with what I call no food sources, which again are the isolated, fragmented, laboratory-made vitamins and multivitamins that simply lack that powerful synergy. And so that's why I love this product. I love Juice Plus, because it is raw food, whole raw food in capsules. But I think what really sets us apart from any other supplement on the market today is the research on it. Okay, it's the most thoroughly researched brand name nutritional product available today in the world. Bar none, there is not another product in the world that can approach the quality of the research done on this product, which is why I love this. Okay, now 18 years of published studies, over 30 published studies in peer-reviewed journals. It's studied in 8 countries and 4 continents around the world at really bad universities like Yale. I love that part of the lecture. Okay, moving on. But you know, Juice Plus has been studied at Yale, Vanderbilt, Medical University of Graz, MD Anderson Cancer Center. Really? This is huge, folks. Okay, this is the array of institutions that have studied our product. And that is really, really awesome. You know, I had to lean against that kind of research, not only for me to take a product, but for my family to take it, and then for me to recommend it for other people to take it. I had to lean against that body of research. You know, the company didn't go, you know, to the University of Antarctica to get its research done. Okay? They challenge themselves at these prestigious institutions. And the other thing that you have to understand is that these institutions are forever wedded to the product itself. You know, their names, their institutions are forever emblazoned on that abstract tied to Juice Plus. So they have a lot at stake too to do top quality research. So again, 26 different fruits, veggies, berries, and grains. Actually, it's 28 because they've added pomegranate and cocaine. Did I say that?
You weren't supposed to say that.
I completely messed that up. I was involved with that formulation. Just kidding. No, it's pomegranate and cocoa or chocolate or whatever. It's awesome. But anyway, it's 28 different fruits, veggies, berries, and grains. And I challenge you to get that rainbow of color, okay? That rainbow of color in your diet each and every day, okay? And if somebody says they're getting that much color in their diet each and every day, they're lying. Okay, that's why this product is so perfectly positioned to bridge the nutritional gap. And just because it looks like it could be a vitamin supplement, it is not a vitamin supplement.
That's right.
Okay, it drives me nuts when people are like, hey, can I order some more of those vitamins from you? Now, if they're ordering it from me, they can call it whatever they want. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. It's not a vitamin, Mom, but I'll order some more for you. Thank you. But I love my mom. But again, it's not a vitamin supplement. You do get your vitamins and minerals, but you're getting them from the plant source, the whole unfractionated form. Again, the way our bodies were meant to utilize and recognize. But with the added benefit of all of these tens of thousands of plant chemicals that scientists are still naming and identifying, the key is the synergy, all those nutrients working together in small amounts to be extremely powerful in the human body. So what I want to do is just finish up with taking a brief look at some of the studies specifically on athletes, and I'm going to dissect these down for you. So this one, there are numerous studies that look at this exercise-induced oxidative stress. And so in order to measure oxidative damage in the body, you have to be able to measure things in the blood or in urine. And so when oxidative stress occurs to the membranes that surround our cells and tissues, what happens is that leaches out a substance called malondialdehyde that can be measured in the blood. When proteins are damaged, and this is what we're going to talk about with the research, when proteins are damaged, it leaches out a product into the blood called protein carbonyls. And then when our genetic material is damaged by oxidative stress, it leaches out something called 8-hydroxydeoxyguanosine. I got it right. Don't ask me to do it again. And specifically, when we're talking about the athlete studies, we're looking at what happens to muscle damage, what happens to protein damage in an athlete, because that's what happens when you exercise. There can be damage to muscles that's due to oxidative stress. And so this particular study was that they looked at the members of the Austrian Special Forces Cobra unit, which is, their equivalent to our Navy SEALs. Okay, these are big, rough, rugged guys under a lot of physical and psychological stress. And they found that these guys that supplemented their diets with Juice Plus had reduced exercise-induced oxidative stress, they had improved markers of immunity, and they had fewer duty days lost due to illness. And so basically there were two groups in this study. One group that got the dummy pill, or the placebo, which is depicted in the red boxes here, and the other group that got Juice Plus was depicted in the green triangles. And on this particular axis over here is the amount of those oxidized proteins circulating around their bodies, and down here is the length of the study. And this is basically a 28-week study on these athletes. But it's interesting that during the final 20-week session, that's when Austria became chair of the European Union. And what happened during that period of time is that these athletes had a significant increase in their physical workload. They had a lot more duty hours that they had to put in, and that's what's depicted in the gray box. And so very interestingly, what they found out during that period of time is that the athletes that were taking the placebo dummy pill, and they were exercising during this particular session, that they started to accumulate these oxidized proteins inside their bodies. And that correlated with them getting sick. Okay, they were accumulating these oxidized proteins and they were getting sicker. They were getting coughs and colds. Very interestingly, during that same period of time, the individuals that were taking Juice Plus had a reduction in these oxidized proteins in their bodies, and that correlated with them having a 33% less chance of getting sick with a cough or a cold. Okay, so not only in this particular study, not only did Juice Plus protect these athletes from the oxidative stress, but it actually revved up their immune system at the same time. Now, in a second publication from that particular study, and this is it. Okay, I tell people this is the can opener for my brain when it came to actually tying in what is going on inside our bodies when we exercise. So this particular study found that Juice Plus helped to reduce permanent oxidation or damage to proteins during intense exercise, and this is the key, allowing the body to adapt to the benefits of exercise without long-term damage to proteins. So what I'm going to do is break this one down as well. So there were two groups in this particular study that they did. Okay, one group of athletes that exercised at 70% VO2 max, which is exercising hard. And then there was another group that exercised at 80% VO2 max, which is really hard. That's when you're on a treadmill, you're running, you can't talk to the person next to you. And I'm just going to focus on the 80% VO2 max group because both of them had similar results. It just makes the charting a little bit easier. And so in this particular group, they subdivided them into two separate groups. One group that got the Juice Plus capsules, or as in England they call it capsules, okay? Juice Plus capsules. And the other group that got the dummy pill, or the placebo. And so what they did during this 28-week period is that they exercised these athletes 4 different times. Okay, they exercised them at baseline before they even started supplementation. They exercised them 4 weeks into the study, then again at 16 weeks, and then again at 28 weeks. And what they did is at each of these exercise sessions, they drew blood on these athletes immediately after 30 minutes and then 30 hours. Okay, 2 groups. One group that got the dummy pill, placebo, depicted in the red bars. The other group that got Juice Plus, depicted in the green bars. And so at baseline, before they even started Juice Plus or the placebo, they exercised these guys. And this is all done to scale. I didn't fudge any of the numbers. Okay? I think it's pretty obvious what's going on here. Okay. 28-week session, there was a significant accumulation of these oxidized or damaged proteins inside these athletes' bodies, okay, that were taking the dummy pill, that were taking the placebo. But look at the group that was taking Juice Plus. There was no accumulation of these oxidized or damaged proteins inside of their bodies, okay? But very interestingly, take a look at this. This is where these circles are that I put. Even before these athletes exercised in the placebo group, even before they started exercising, they had already started to accumulate these oxidized proteins in their bodies. Over this period of time, their bodies were not able to synthesize the accumulation of these oxidized proteins, whereas the Juice Plus group did. And so what this points out to is, again, we're all born with that complex internal enzyme cascade that acts as a frontline defense system. Well, if you're not putting micronutrients into it, as from Juice Plus, that system eventually begins to fail, because that's what happened in the placebo group. But if you do put micronutrients into that system, it functions just fine. Okay, do you all get that? Okay, that's huge to understand. The reason for that is because just over the last 2 to 3 years, study after study after study is now making the link between this accumulation of these oxidized proteins in athletes' bodies to overtraining and overreaching syndromes. So you see an athlete, and this could be little Johnny going off to soccer, all the way up to the elite athlete that actually start off a season healthy, right? But as that season continues, they start to get more and more sore, more and more sick, more and more tired, more and more injured during that particular season. Well, they're now making the link to this accumulation of these oxidized proteins in these athletes' bodies. All right, and you're going to hear my story just here in a minute as it totally relates to that particular study. The other part of that study to understand is that not all oxidative stress is actually harmful to your body, okay? In fact, there's just a certain amount of low-level physiologic oxidative stress that acts as a cell signal. It acts as something called a redox signal, okay? It signals your body to change. It signals your body to adapt. And it's absolutely one of the reasons why you get more healthy and fit when you exercise at a moderate level, because there's an adaptive response that occurs in your body, and there's a certain amount of low-level physiologic oxidative stress that participates in that. The reason I say this is because in that particular study, while Juice Plus protected these athletes from extended amounts of oxidative stress when they exercised, it did so without shutting down or blunting the adaptive response to exercise, the health-promoting effect of exercise. And the reason all that's important is just this year, a few months ago, they're now finding that athletes that are taking these isolated vitamins like vitamin C or E, well, they're finding that those isolated vitamins are mechanistically shutting down that adaptive response to exercise, okay, hampering cellular adaptations and leading to a decrease in their training efficiency. Okay, so you see athletes who are so tied to their vitamin supplements, and people in general, and you're going to hear my stories that relates to that. With all this now, you really, really have to ask the question, why? Okay, why? And Juice Plus is also, that's a little hard to see, but it was also the official nutritional support for the entire Austrian, German, and Swiss Olympic teams through the London Games. Okay, they got it over there. These studies I'm talking about were done at the Medical University of Graz in Austria. They understood the benefit to their athletes, which is why they wanted their athletes to be taking Juice Plus through the London Games. And just a couple of stories as it kind of makes our research real. This is Ariana Kukers. Okay, Ariana is now the current world record holder in the 200 individual medley in swimming. If you know her story, she attempted to make the Olympic team in 2008. And she was training really, really hard, ended up getting sick, didn't make the team. And so her mom came and heard me do this talk, actually here, a few years ago, and came up to me afterwards and said, hey, do you think Juice Plus is something my daughter should be taking? I'm like, yeah, big time. So she did, and if you talk to Ariana, it was not an option for her. Mom was like, you're taking it, no questions asked. And sure enough, she didn't change anything up. She continued to train, but she ended up setting the world record in the 200 individual medley in swimming, and she also made the Olympic team in 2012. Okay, this is a great example of somebody who just needed to tweak her system a little bit with micronutrients that she wasn't getting through her diet, and look at the effect it had on her. And if you talk to her, she's just a just wonderful person, but really, really is a believer in whole food nutrition. Okay, we also have an awesome complete shake mix. Okay, and this is really, really cool because I cannot tell you how often and how much research and how often I talk to athletes about the difference between whey protein and soy-based protein. There's such locker room mentality between you athletes that go out and buy these big tubs of whey. Like, I mean, they're gigantor things. Like, so, and the perception is the more the better, But I'll tell you, the highly processed whey proteins are just wrought with issues. Not only are they finding heavy metals and things in these, but they're very pro-inflammatory, lots of issues. Well, the plant-based protein in our complete, the primary plant-based protein is whole, water-washed, non-GMO soy, very low processed. And there's also lots of fibers, gluten-free, low fat, no cholesterol, no dairy, no coloring, preservatives, low glycemic index, and it's 100% vegan. And because I want to put this to rest here, non-GMO soy, which is in our complete, is safe. Okay? These are quotes from leading researchers on this particular issue about soy. Okay, this is Margie McCullough from the American Cancer Society. Soy foods do not interfere with anti-estrogen medicine. Karen Collins from the American Institute for Cancer. Large studies have shown that when soy is given to breast cancer survivors, they have a 25% decreased risk of recurrence. Okay, this quote is from Mark Messina, who I saw speak at a nutraceutical conference years ago. He's a big guru in soy. Most of the trials he looked at, soy does not interfere with thyroid functioning. All these things have been really big issues. But I think the most important and most telling quote comes from me. Soy foods do not cause gynecomastia. Okay? Soy foods do not cause man boobs. And I'll show you right now. No, I'm just kidding. But there's so much mythology out there when it comes to soy. Our soy is completely safe. And this is a great story. This is Dennis Pitta. Dennis is a customer under one of our distributors, and he works out at the local gym or our club. And we got Dennis. He's a tight end for the Baltimore Ravens. And we got Dennis going on Juice Plus a little over a year ago. And he was like, he was all into the capsules, but he was really afraid about the shakes because of the man boob thing. Like, Dennis, it's fine. Trust me. Take it. And so he ended up going to camp last year, preseason camp. And if you followed his story, he ended up getting a really bad injury in preseason. He ended up having a fractured dislocation of his hip, which is typically a season-ending injury, let alone maybe a career-ending injury. And so when that happened, we were on the horn to him like right away, like, dude, right now you double, triple everything you can. He'd already tripled up his Juice Plus even before we talked to him because he knew the benefit. And sure enough, not only did he heal quickly, but he ended up coming back and playing the final 4 games of the season last year, and he just signed in the last couple of months a $30 million contract. But this is great. His orthopods were blown away at how quickly he healed. Okay? But this is great. This is what we're talking about here, okay? We know why he healed quickly. Plants, okay? Healthy plants in his diet optimized his immune system, optimized his physiology, and he was able to heal and come back and play. Okay, so basically then, coming back to the gasoline oil analogy, I mean, the shake mix is really a great balanced set of macronutrients with micronutrition as well. So again, that is the gasoline for our bodies. Juice Plus provides those micronutrients, again, the good oil that keeps the engine running. So the combination of those, very, very powerful. In fact, the combination approximates getting almost 50 different kinds of plants into your body. Okay, that's health food. That's clean, burning fuel. And so really the combination is a transformation, but it is a transformation that's also a restoration. You're restoring your body to a healthy balance again. When you exercise and you take Juice Plus products, you're restoring your body. You're getting it back to a healthy balance. If you already have a chronic disease like diabetes or heart disease or cancer, again, restoring your body, trying to get it back to its normal healthy self. And then finally, I just want to tell you my story as it relates to this. This is my finish at the Ironman World Championships in Kona back in 2005. And it was a 10-hour, 10-minute, and 12-second nonstop day. And I joke with people that I will never forget those 12 seconds. Just get me from here to that wall and I'm done. Long, long day. And I actually had a pretty good race. I finished the race, went upstairs, showered, came downstairs, ate dinner, sat around the finishing line watching people finish. And this is the race that you see televised on TV. NBC films this. There's helicopters. It's kind of a big star-studded event. And that wasn't to say that I wasn't sore or tired, because I was. That's a long, non-stop day. But I felt distinctly different in this race versus the year before when I did Ironman Florida. And I had a miserable race at Ironman Florida, not only because I was taking Advil before the run, but at Ironman Florida, I had a horrible race. I mean, I was fatigued and tired going into the race itself, which I now know is because I had accumulated all those oxidized proteins inside my body and not protecting myself and neutralizing them. Subsequently, I had a miserable race for about 2 to 3 days after the race. I was constantly sick with one cough, one cold, one upper respiratory infection. Actually, that went on for weeks. And at that time, believe it or not, okay, I was taking 8 vitamin, mineral, and herbal supplements. Okay, I had my concoction. All right, I was putting things into my body based on testimonials from my training partners. It was working for them, probably going to work for me. I didn't do a lick of research on anything I was putting in my body, and now I know those were doing more harm to me than good. And the only thing I did differently from that race to this race a year later was that I was actually approached by a very attractive and intelligent woman who said, you know what, you have a lot of oxidative stress going on in your body because you're training a lot. And of course, I didn't know what that was because they don't teach doctors about oxidative stress. And she's like, you need to be taking these fruits and vegetables in capsules. And I'm looking at him going, I'm already eating really well. And you know, as doctors, we're trained to be very skeptical, okay? So I was. But because she was just gorgeous and hot and I wanted to date her, I took them. Okay? Yes, and now we're married. And you know, that's it. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Doc. Yeah, whole food nutrition brought us back together, so there we go. But anyway, the reason I knock on myself for this is because it was just too hard for me to wrap my Ivy League doctor brain around something as simple as fruits and vegetables and capsules. Okay, it wasn't complicated enough for me. It was simple. I mean, I could turn around a bottle of Juice Plus and I could pronounce everything in it because it was whole, raw food. Okay? But I took them because I wanted to date her, honest to God truth. And not right away, but about 2 to 3 months into taking Juice Plus, I started to notice some subtle, kind of anecdotal, testimonial things that were happening to my physiology that all my years as a collegiate swimmer and triathlete I had never noticed before. In the sense that I was having a lot less muscle and joint pain. I was recovering a lot quicker between my training and racing sessions. And the other thing I noticed is I wasn't getting sick. I wasn't getting the coughs, the colds, all those things I was constantly chasing before I started taking Juice Plus. So I knew that there was something going on, and that's when I decided to look at the research on the product. And at that time, 2 of the studies on Juice Plus were published in my sports medicine journal, which is called Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. Folks, that's the official journal of the American College of Sports Medicine. Are you kidding me?
What's it called?
Yeah. Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. They can study fruits and vegetables in capsules with a placebo in humans, not rats or mice, using gold standard protocol, get those kinds of results, and then have them accepted and published in one of the most prestigious sports medicine journals in the world? Are you kidding me? Bingo, the light bulb went on for me, and it's never gone out. I always joke with people, I think an appropriate lecture for me to come up next would be something called Docs and Jocks, the 2 hardest nuts to crack. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then before I finish, I just want to point this out too, because this is key. Juice Plus is also NSF certified for sport. And what that is that's an additional certification that's necessary for any athlete at the collegiate or professional level to be able to take a product. It has to carry this particular certification. And what the certification ensures is that what's in the product, what's in Juice Plus is in there, and what's not in there is not in there. Things like stimulants and steroids that can turn a drug test positive. And that's huge. That was Ariana's concern about taking a product. That was Dennis Pitta's concern about taking a product because they're constantly tested. And how many times have you heard athletes that are testing positive because they go in the local vitamin store and buy up all the stuff in there and it's not tested? Okay, this is not a cheap certification, but Juice Plus does carry this. So any athlete at any level can take Juice Plus and know that it's going to have not only awesome benefits for their physiology, but they'll be safe in having to take it as well. So the bottom line is normal daily metabolism produces free radicals. We know that. And that when you exercise at any level, okay, it increases that free radical production. And if free radicals are not neutralized, they can lead to accelerated aging, chronic disease conditions, and as you've just seen, poor athletic performance. And the most effective way of neutralizing free radicals is through antioxidants, but antioxidants from food, okay, fruits and veggies. But because it's so difficult to get that minimum 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every day and in that vast array of colors, that's where Juice Plus comes in, to bridge that nutritional gap. And really it is about your performance deserves protection. Your performance It's staying in the game longer and longer. That's the idea here, okay? You want to be healthy today. How about healthy tomorrow, next year, the year after? Athletes want to be in the game longer. You know, they want to be in the game this year. They want to be stronger next year. That's what we offer. We're not offering a magic bullet for athletic performance. It does not exist. Okay, but what we have is pretty darn close to it. Okay, this is the oil that makes an athlete's engine run smoothly, day in, day out, year after year after year. The whole point is keep it simple. It's fruits and vegetables and capsules. That's all you need to know, honestly. But realize that you can walk out there with a shield on your arm of a huge body of research, over 30 studies published in peer-reviewed journals, and physicians like me, biochemists that go to Stanford are out there talking about this. But we're there for your back. We have your back, and we want to be a part of that. And I just think you guys should be really excited to go out and get this message and to do it very successfully and very confidently. So that is all I have. Thank you.